Hey, Tom here from the Run Testers. In this video, I'm going to be doing a versus of two shoes that I would use for faster training efforts as well as daily training miles. I've got the Hoka Rincon 3 and the Saucony Speed 2. Let's take a look. The Saucony Speed 2 costs £155 or $160. It weighs in at 232 grams or 8.2 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 8mm. The Hoka Rincon 3 costs £105 or $115. It weighs in at 203 grams or 7.2 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 5mm. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 2 is the follow-up to the popular Speed, designed for versatility over everything from daily training runs all the way up to race day. It sits between the Endorphin Shift 2 for slower training miles and Saucony's high-performance race shoe, the Endorphin Pro 2. It has a full-length nylon plate that's combined with Power-On PB midsole foam for a responsive ride. It features Saucony's Speed Roll technology to propel you forward and has an engineered mesh upper. As well as a form-fit design to ensure a lockdown fit, there's an XT900 outsole to add grip and protect the midsole foam. The Rincon 3 is a shoe that's designed to offer a generous level of EVA midsole cushioning while still being surprisingly lightweight. The latest version has a new vented mesh upper that shaves additional weight off the previous Rincon 2, as well as a thinner tongue structure. Those features include an early stage metal rocker to aid running efficiency and acceleration, high abrasion rubber zones on the outsole to protect the EVA foam, and an accentuated heel pull tab. The fit for me in the Saucony Speed 2, it's fine, it's true to size, but I would say it's quite a narrow shoe. I did notice the first couple of times that I wore this shoe, it was rubbing a little bit on the sides of my feet. I don't have particularly wide feet, they're fairly average, I imagine, but around the left-hand side of my foot, I did feel it running a bit, and it was a bit uncomfortable. It took maybe 2 or 3 runs in the Speed 2 for that to loosen up a bit, and they're completely fine now, but it's just to pay attention to that when you first get it, because they are a slightly narrow shoe. The Rincon 3 is a Hoka shoe, which means it is also quite a narrow shoe. It's quite similar to the Speed in that sense. The one thing that I find different about the Rincon 3 to the Speed 2 is that the upper is a little bit more forgiving. So even though the shoe's narrow, your feet can push out a little bit more in this upper because it's a little bit more generous when it presses out. So it was fine from day one, and it fit true to size for me. So the reason I picked these two shoes, you may not think that they are similar shoes, and in many ways they aren't. But for a lot of people looking for a versatile shoe that they can use for daily training all the way up to race day, these are both two shoes that are going to pop up in that list. And these are both two of my favourite shoes for doing that, for slightly different reasons. The Saucony Speed and the Speed 2 have been probably one of, if not the most popular shoe over the past year or so for pretty much everything that people are doing. So it's a really nice shoe for daily training. It's really comfortable to do long miles in, or high mileage efforts where you're doing lots of training day after day. But it also has that nylon plate in it, which is absolutely fantastic if you want to pick up the pace and go faster. People use it for races all the time because it just has that versatility and can just get you over the line, and does it in a really nice and fast way. A lot of people actually prefer the Speed 2 to the Pro 2. In fact, I do. I raced in the Pro 2 a couple of weeks ago, and I much prefer the Speed 2. It just feels a little bit more forgiving. It just feels a little bit more enjoyable on the feet. So yeah, it's just a really nice all-round shoe that does a bit of everything. It's a really fantastic option if you just want one shoe to cover everything. The Hoka Rincon 3 is quite similar to that. It's a really comfortable daily wear shoe. There's a lot of cushioning in it. It's a Hoka, you would expect that. But it's also very lightweight as well. And I haven't raced in the Rincon 3 yet, but I used to race in the Rincon 1 quite a lot, and I absolutely love that shoe for racing in, even though it doesn't have a carbon plate, because it's just really light, really comfortable, and just makes you feel like you can just pick up the pace really nicely without any extra heaviness on the shoe or just too much bulkiness. It's just a great lightweight all-rounder. Obviously, the major difference in the two shoes is that plate that runs through the Saucony Speed 2. And it does make a big difference in the feel of the shoe. The Speed 2 is a fantastically responsive shoe when it comes to running faster. That plate does quite a bit of work. It's not the most obvious plate that you're running in. It's not like you're running in a Vaporfly or something like that where you feel that plate and the foam really like pushing you forward. But you can feel it, and it does help you pick up the pace, but in a more subtle way. So you can still run those slower daily miles if you want, and the plate's not really propelling you forward, but it's just helping you with that efficiency. And that's where the Speed 2 really comes into play. That combination of the plate and that midsole foam makes for a really nice, versatile run, which means that you can just do all those different efforts, and the plate can just push you forward when you go on the faster training sessions. The Rincon 3 doesn't have a plate in it, but it is really good for running fast as well. There's obviously very little in terms of responsive bounce from the midsole because of that lack of carbon plate and the fact that this cushioning in the midsole isn't really designed for bounce when it comes to running at speed. But it's still quite a fast shoe, and the fact that it's got that really big chunk of cushioning in there is a little bit... it makes you think that maybe it's not a shoe designed for running fast, but it really is. It's a really good shoe at picking up the pace without you really thinking about what's on your feet. And I would say it would be difficult for me to pick between these two shoes if I was going for a fast training session, because the benefits of these two are slightly different, but I like both of them. I actually would probably say that I prefer running in the Rincon 3 when it comes to comfort. I find this a really comfortable shoe to wear. The upper's a little bit more forgiving than the Speed 2, so I feel it a bit more comfortable on the upper part of the feet. But I also love cushioning, and that cushioning that sits in the midsole is a really good level of cushioning for somebody like me who just wants a bit of softness in their run, but not too much. So it doesn't feel like an overly soft shoe. It just feels like it's deadening the impact all the time. With the Speed 2, there is still quite a bit of cushioning in there, but it does feel like a firmer ride. And I love running in this shoe quite a lot, but I probably prefer the midsole in the Rincon 3 just because I like the extra softness. This is a bit firmer. The plate is quite a hard plate, so it really does hold the foot into a position. It's not very flexible when you compare it with the flexible midsole that you get in the Rincon 3. The other thing that differentiates these two shoes for me is the outsole design. The outsole on the Saucony Speed 2 does have quite a good level of rubber in to protect that midsole foam that you've got in the shoe. There's not loads. There's quite a big exposed section here, which I've started to get wear and tear from across the section here, which is where I pronate a little bit. But there is quite a bit of rubber on there to protect it, so it can be a fairly durable shoe for people, and that's why it often does so well with people looking for training shoes that also take them up to race day. The Rincon 3 doesn't have a lot of rubber on it. I mean, it's a fair bit on the front and the back, but the exposed section is really quite big and pronounced. And the durability of the Rincon 3 is probably the biggest factor in it not being as good value as some other shoes. So this section here in the Rincon 1 did wear down for me quite a bit. And a lot of people who, from reviews online, will tell you that it hasn't got a longer life expectancy as many other shoes, especially even in Hoka's collection, because it just lacks that outsole rubber to protect that delicate midsole. The other thing I'd say about these two shoes is that the upper for me in the Rincon 3 does feel a lot looser. It does feel a lot more forgiving when you're running it, which is nice when you're doing slow, comfortable runs. But when you're doing faster efforts and even on race day, it can be a little bit loose, and you can't quite get as nice a lockdown fit with it that you can with the Speed 2, which has a very good lockdown fit. Your foot feels firmly in place with this shoe, to the point where when I first started wearing it, it felt a little bit tight. But that's when you're doing races in the shoe, it feels really nice and locked down when you're turning corners. It's a very stable shoe from that sense. And the Rincon 3 just doesn't have that stability in the upper that I like for race day. As you probably guessed from the name, the Speed 2 is a shoe designed for speed, and I think it just tops the Rincon 3 when it comes to running faster, purely because of the combination of that plate, the fitted upper, and that midsole foam is a little bit firmer than what you get in the Rincon 3. So it is more conducive to running faster in the Speed 2, but I think the Rincon 3 is more comfortable. So you just have to weigh up what you want out of the two shoes. But I think if you're looking at comfort that can go to race day, the Rincon 3 is a good option. If you want race day that can go to daily running, but maybe not too worried about super comfort in that shoe, the Speed 2 was probably the good option. And then, of course, there's price as well. So the Speed 2 comes in at £155, which is significantly more expensive than the Hoka Rincon 3, which comes in at £105. So that's a £50 difference. I would say that you lose some of that money in the durability anyway. So that extra cost that you're paying for the Speed 2, you're probably getting a bit more durability out of that shoe anyway, as well as those race benefits. So overall, it probably is a better shoe. But if you really want a cheap option that you can cover you for race day and training, the Rincon 3 is a good option. So my verdict on these two shoes, I am a massive fan of both of these shoes, and I think they are excellent options for somebody looking for a shoe that will cover them for daily training miles, tempo runs, all the way up to race day. Both of these shoes can do that. Ultimately, I think it comes down to the core thing that you want out of your shoes. If you are on a budget and you want to spend as little as possible on a shoe that can do that, and you can use it for training miles and you can use it for race day, the Hoka Rincon 3 is a great option. But you may have some slight issues with durability. It might not last as long as the Saucony Speed 2. The Saucony Speed 2 is the shoe that's best placed for versatility like the Rincon 3, but further up the scale for that faster paced race efforts. This shoe it could battle many a carbon plate shoe for how good it is on race day. It's just a great all-rounder for that level of racing. It's not quite as fast for me as something like the Alpha Fly or the Vaporfly. I'd still much rather wear those shoes for race day. But if you've got one shoe that you want to buy for the majority of your efforts, I would say you probably wouldn't use this for really slow miles or long training efforts where you just want softness and comfort. But it will do most of it. So it's a brilliantly versatile shoe that's really focused on speed, brilliantly versatile shoe that's really focused on comfort. There are, of course, many other options you could look at if you wanted a faster paced training shoe. Instead of these two shoes, you could get the Hoka Carbon X2, which is a carbon plate shoe, but it's not really well designed for race day. It's much better at those daily efforts and those tempo efforts. Also the Hoka Rocket X, which is a fantastic shoe. I'd probably say that's up there with the Saucony Speed 2. It also has a plate, and it would be very difficult for me to choose between those two shoes. If you wanted to go without a carbon plate, but you still wanted a faster paced daily trainer that can also do race day, maybe the Convara 11 is a good option, although I'd still go for all of these options above that one, but it is a more traditional style shoe. And then my all-time favorite daily training shoe that can cover you all the way up to race day is the New Balance Fuel Cell TC. It feels a lot more like what you'd expect from those super shoes like the Alpha Fly and the Vaporfly. It's a lot bouncier. It's got a really noticeable plate in it, and it just feels like a super shoe that's slightly designed for more daily training miles, although it is a little bit less stable than what you'll get in these shoes. So that's it for me. Thanks a lot for watching this Versus video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the little bell icon, and check the channel out for all the other videos we've got from latest road and trail shoes, as well as the latest watches and headphones out at the moment. Thanks a lot for watching. See you soon.